welcome a brother from another mother. He is here, and I love what he's doing out in the world. He is now the professor and chair of pathology at Howard University and the co-author of a new book, Death in Custody. Let me welcome back to the show, Dr. Roger Mitchell. Hello. Hi.
Hey, Karen, how's it going?
It's
Welcome,
going
man.
well. How
Welcome.
are you? How are you?
What's
You
up,
you
Tyler? I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's always good to be here on the Karen Hunter Show with the fam.
I appreciate you. You have a connection to Morgan, right?
Outside of one of my best friend's daughters there right now, and I was on the phone with him last night as soon as I heard to make sure that my little niece was safe and sound. Other than that, no, I don't have a
Yeah.
direct connection with Morgan.
But I know a lot of your mission, and you are on a mission, which is why I love what you're doing. Is around this violence, this gun violence, and it's not just what police do, but there's a conversation to be had, and it's all connected because it's systemic. Um,
That's right.
how should we be navigating these spaces right now? Because I'm careful to not demonize, the college, because I'm not ever going to do that. At the
Yeah.
same time, there's something happening in this world that is it seems irreparable, but I feel like it may not be.
Well, like you said, I've been looking at violence as a public health issue for a very, very long time, wherever it shows its face. And I'll tell you right now, I don't have the specifics on Morgan on what that active shooter looked like, or why that individual, and what access that individual had, or what his or her motivations were. But we have a love affair in this country with our guns. And I don't demonize guns either, because they are part of our constitutional right. But are in a place right now where we're going to have to start making some really hard choices. And our hard choices are: do we pick our babies, or do we pick our guns? And so we're going to have to do something different, that makes that choice clearly evident, because right now it's not clearly evident. It's squishy. There's a lot of gray. There's a lot of mixed talk. And I think this is a time where we can really be black and white about the decisions we're making. And violence is a very complex issue, whether it's smoldering urban violence and is directly connected to our history of slavery in this country, or whether it's urban white rural violence that is associated with poverty, or whether it's the active shooter that may have some mental health and some racism involved in it. So there's not a single brand of violence, just like there's not a single brand of cancer in this country. But we take time to understand the different types of cancer through different organs, and try to eradicate that cancer as a whole. We need to be doing the same thing with violence. And quite frankly, there's not the money in the NIH and not the money in the CDC that researches violence and gun violence the way cancer's research, or hypertension's research, or diabetes. But yet violence is the number one killer of adolescents in this country.
Mm. And you honed in your book, Death in Custody: How America Ignores the Truth and What We Can Do About It, on this issue of death in custody, people who lose their lives in custody. And I often say, we have a justice system that says you're innocent until proven guilty. Then how are so many people not getting due process?
Yeah, when we talk about in custody and what that means, it starts on a continuum. It starts in that pre-arrest phase where law enforcement is running after an individual or chasing after them, and then it goes through, you're under arrest and under the knee of a law enforcement officer, just like George Floyd, to individuals that are in carceral systems that may be dying from hypertension or diabetes or untreated cancer, or like LaShawn Thompson dying from neglect. And so that we, in this book, we really, and it's phenomenal, that over your shoulder is Ida B. Wells. And we start this book off in the first chapter talking about lynching and the work of Ida B. Wells. And the through thread, Karen, is that journalists, advocates, lawyers have been the ones holding up this issue of death in custody. It hasn't been our federal government. And so there right now, if you were to ask, is there a database to tell us accurately how many people are dying in custody along that continuum that I described, not just homicides, but naturals and suicides and things of that nature? If you were to ask if there is a database, the answer is no. No one is collecting data. And so the book highlights the work of journalists throughout history that bring this forward, advocates throughout history, movements throughout history in this different parts of the country. We tell you stories of people you didn't know died, just like there's several hundred and thousands of people that right now that you don't know their names, but for coverage on TV. And at the end of it, we call it a public health issue. And we say, hey, listen, we need a checkbox on the U.S. standard death certificate that says death in custody, yes or no, so that we can start capturing these deaths objectively. You're a Black woman, Karen. My brother Tyler's a Black man. We know that Black women are dying at a higher rate in and around pregnancy, right? We know that maternal mortality is an issue, right? The reason why we know that is because there's a checkbox on the U.S. standard death certificate. That's the reason why we know it. And so I'm a public health guy. I'm a forensic pathologist. I've been doing this at the highest level for now 2 decades. And so it's time to stop the official ignorance, right? It's time to start moving towards telling the truth about these deaths in the carceral system.
Dr. Mitchell, let me ask you, first of all, I appreciate everything you just said. I want to ask you a little bit, some on a personal level for our listeners who have kids, for individuals that are trying to figure out how do they technically dive into the kind of work that you're doing. You're not just somebody with opinions. You are deep in anatomy and forensic pathology, as you just said. What birthed that in you and made you go, I want to lean into it education-wise? Like, what was it that brought you there? Did you go into that first and then the justice kind of followed, or were they tied together?
No, I appreciate that. I was the first Black man in FBI DNA laboratories back in 1997. So this was when forensics was just really coming on the scene post OJ trial. I got into forensics, got exposed to forensic medicine, left the FBI to go to med school. And in 1999, Amadou Diallo got killed. 1999, Amadou Diallo was shot at 41 times, hit 19 in New York City. He had entrance wounds in the soles of his feet. We were the same age. I knew that I was going to med school to understand violence as a public health issue because I got exposed to David Satcher's report on youth violence. He's one of our Surgeon General's, big time Morehouse guy, brother, and I saw myself in him. And so I wanted to be like David Satcher, understand violence and I thought being a medical examiner, forensic pathologist would be the best way, right? I see the end result of violence, right? In suicides and homicide designations. I take bullets out of people. I do autopsies. And I thought that would be the best way to understand this problem. And then Amadou Diallo got killed. And I said, well, there's a subset of violence against violence that's happening in our community. And that looks like state-sponsored violence. So, okay, I think I want to study that and bring attention to that so that I could understand it better. And then Earl Faison got killed. And Earl Faison was in New Jersey. And he was killed after a killing of a law enforcement officer. And we tell Earl Faison's story in the book, right? We fully tell it. We talk about Larry Ham. Karen, you probably know People's Organization for Progress because you're from Jersey as well. And so while I was in med school in Jersey, at University of Medicine and Dentistry in New Jersey, I got exposed to these issues and started writing on it. So when you talk about young people, I was writing on death in custody. We called it police brutality at the time. I was writing on police brutality as a health issue as a medical student in 1999 and wrote one of the first papers that was published in the Journal of the Student National Medical Association about this topic. And now it's been my career. Now, nearly 25 years later, we have a major book out on Johns Hopkins Press. Go get it, deathandcustodybook.com. And we have a podcast called officialignorance.com, where if you want to hear us talk about these issues, we got 5 episodes out. We have 4 more that we're dropping over the next 4 weeks.
Dope, man. Dope.
When I look at death in custody, I think it should be right up there with the new Jim Crow, with the debt. You know, the work that you put in to codify, to make clear the issue, and a little simple box, and it seems simple, but that is not there allows us to ignore the problem, right? And you're making it front and center. What moves can we make, the listeners, to get that box on the death certificate?
I literally got an email today from the Centers for Disease Control. His name is Paul Sutton at the Centers for Disease Control. He runs the vital statistics component of the CDC that governs the death certificate. And what he's told me is that there is lack of reliability on checkboxes, a lot of excuses. But what we want to do is that if you're a state legislator and you want to do this locally, we need to do it locally. We need to do it. Pennsylvania is thinking about a law. There's a senator there. I won't call her name yet because she hasn't put forward the law. We have the checkbox in Washington, D.C. I was able to get it on the checkbox under Muriel Bowser. We're about to put out some research surrounding what that checkbox has done in the District of Columbia over the next 4 months. But we need states to want to put the checkbox on the death certificate, not just the checkbox. We're calling also for fatality review committees, multidisciplinary fatality review committees that are reviewing deaths in custody and making medical and social recommendations to the local jurisdictions on how policy can change within those jails, prisons, and law enforcement agencies. This is not new stuff, Karen, Tyler. This is not new stuff. This is the stuff we did for cancer. This is the stuff we do for infant mortality. This is the stuff we do for pedestrians hit by motor vehicles, Vision Zero. These are time-tested public health approaches that I'm saying that we need to attribute to death in custody.
Ooh, I know that you have limited time, but I want you to continue to come back, and I'm so incredibly proud of the work you do. This is the call, right? It's not, it's getting a medical degree. That's nice, and I appreciate all of the doctors out there. But if you're not using that degree to help change the paradigm and shift the world towards something better, or to at least bring attention, then it's good. Make your salary or what have you. But this is the work, Dr. Mitchell. This is what we should be all doing with our platform.
Thank you for your heart, man, and not just. It was birthed in you, 1999, with you having the sensitivity to go, I'm not just going to take this information that I have and just sit on it, but I'm going to take it and use it. We recognize that, we appreciate it, and you're an inspiration to a lot of individuals that are out in the world trying to do things, man.
Amen.
Tyler and Karen, I'm sorry to just cut you off. I'm not just regular, right? I ran all death investigations for Harris County for 4 years. I was the chief medical examiner of New Jersey for 2. I was the chief medical examiner of Washington, D.C. for 7. Right. I sat on national boards. I'm the Speaker of the House of the National Medical Association. So we're not leveraging just the intellect. We are leveraging every single piece of the movement towards moving, and including hip hop culture, because I sit on the board of the Hip Hop Caucus, right? And so Karen, I'm going to send you a book because my heart is breaking that I didn't send you a book. And you don't have it on the ledge behind you.
I bought the book.
I need it on that ledge.
Yeah, you can. Well, as soon as I get it, first of all, I support. So don't even worry about it. Buy the book. I'm gonna put it right here, behind me, and then the podcast, Official Ignorance. You're 5 episodes in. What's the next one about?
The one that just dropped Tuesday is interviewing the first Black chief medical examiner in the country. Her name is Dr. Joy Carter. She's one of my mentors, and she did Sandra Bland's second exam. And so we're talking through that and talking about the complicit nature of medical examiner systems in the covering of these deaths. And then the next episode, next Tuesday that drops, we're having a full conversation about Sandra Bland. Sandra Bland's
Oof.
case is probably the epitome of how law enforcement and incarceration, all phases of the death in custody paradigm, is in Sandra Bland's case. And me and my co-author, Jay Aronson, you could see him over my shoulder. Him and I have a really good conversation about race in this episode that you don't want to miss.
Yeah, I was wondering who that guy was. I was like, why
Yeah,
are we looking at him?
That's my guy. Yeah,
Okay,
he's a human rights professor out of Carnegie Mellon. Phenomenal, brilliant. We wrote this book together, and him and I are able to go into every room together.
Just bought it. Just bought it.
Yeah, I just got it too. Mine comes tomorrow. And you can go to officialignorance.com and check out the podcast. You can just listen to it now. Listen to it for free, which is great.
Yeah, deathandcustodybook.com. Deathandcustodybook.com.